So one of the key mechanics when it comes to Stalker, not only in the upcoming Stalker 2, but even in the old games, is the different anomalies that can be found throughout the world that have a pretty drastic impact on the gameplay or on any given situation, and for the most part are very deadly, unforgiving, and generally pretty unpredictable. Today I wanted to deep dive into the anomaly system to explain everything you need to know about it so that you guys are prepared to deal with these anomalies once you get your hands on Stalker 2 come November 20th. Now, firstly, to just explain, I guess, the basic concept of an anomaly before we get into the finer details. Anomalies are small areas within the exclusion zone of Chernobyl, where I guess you could say that the laws of nature or the physics of that area have essentially been changed permanently due to all of the hazardous radiation that courses through the area after the events of the Chernobyl disaster. Now, it was actually the second Chernobyl disaster, which is obviously fictional. The original Chernobyl disaster in 1986, the real one, that is obviously canon within this game, but then the added lore to this game is that there was a second disaster 20 years later in 2006 that caused the area to be even worse than it originally was, and is kind of what caused not only all of the mutations and stuff to all the creatures and the animals in the area, but that is actually what has caused these anomalies too. Now, anomalies can be seen most of the time via some sort of distortion, so usually it's a distortion of light or air. As you guys can see on screen, this orb thing, this is an example of an anomaly. They don't all look like this, but generally that is just how they look. And whenever you see something like this, it means that the surrounding area is extra dangerous, with pretty much every anomaly being different than the last. Now, the reason I say extra dangerous is because the entire exclusion zone, which is essentially the entire map in this game, is already very dangerous. Everything around you pretty much wants to kill you. The majority of the things you'll come across are mutated, so they are extra aggressive, or they can take more damage, for example. And generally speaking, the entire exclusion zone is just very dangerous. It is pretty similar to living in Australia, where I live, although obviously much worse because everything is freaking muted. With that being said though, these anomalies make the area even more dangerous, which says quite a lot considering how dangerous the area already is. Now, these anomalies can be found in multiple different ways, most notably though being through your detector, which is essentially like a Geiger counter that will beep and alert you when you're getting closer to an anomaly, since they emit so much radiation. Now, to add to that too, they also have very strong magnetic fields, and so just like I remember doing in the old games, in Stalker 2 you will be able to throw small metal bolts when you're in an area where an anomaly seems to be, and if you are close enough or if you're facing in the right direction, the metal from that bolt will kind of set the anomaly off, and you can almost see a bit of an example as to what that anomaly actually does to the physics in that area, because it will react to the metal from that bolt, causing it to act as if that is yourself or an enemy that's actually gone into that area. So there are multiple ways to see these anomalies and sort of figure out what they are. And like I said, you definitely want to figure out what they are because they're not all the same. In fact, pretty much every single one is different. And each time you find one, pretty much the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out what the hell that anomaly does so that you can avoid its danger. Now, before we get into some of the finer details about these anomalies, if you guys are new to the channel and you're interested in more Stalker 2 content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. There is plenty more content on the way, both in the lead up to launch as well as after, so make sure you don't miss out. Now, it kind of goes without saying, but most anomalies are dangerous by nature. If you see an anomaly, you probably need to assume that it's going to harm you or anyone around you, even enemies. So sometimes they can be used to your advantage, for example, but for the most part, you want to assume that that anomaly is dangerous. That being said, not all of them actually are dangerous. Some of them can work in your advantage. One that's been shown to us in the gameplay already is an anomaly that causes the area to have almost a thicker layer of air close to the ground. That means that you pretty much can't take full damage in that area, because if you fall down, as we see in this clip, you kind of just bounce off that thicker layer of air. And so that one is obviously not really dangerous. I can't really see any way that that's going to hurt you. And in actual fact, it actually helps you out. It allows you to just avoid taking full damage. And so that is worth keeping in mind. Not all of these anomalies are dangerous, but it is definitely smart to assume that they are dangerous, because I would have to guess 90 to probably 95% of them will be dangerous to you or anyone around you. Now, we haven't seen too many different examples of the anomalies so far in the game. I think they're trying to keep a lot of it under wraps just to keep it a bit of a surprise. But in the original trilogy, there were countless different anomalies. If I had to guess, it would probably have felt like there was a good 20 to 30 different ways that these anomalies would act, and the physics would be completely different for each of these anomalies. Now, some of the examples we have seen so far in the gameplay, there is one called the burner, which this gameplay here shows pretty much exactly how that goes. The description for this one is that while it's inactive, the anomaly manifests as a barely visible cloud of hot air, but when it's triggered by an object or a living being, it instantly heats up to lethal temperatures. So obviously, it kind of goes without saying, that is very dangerous. If you get too close to this anomaly, known as the burner, you will pretty much catch on fire, and that is obviously not a good thing. Again though, it can be used to your advantage if you figure that out by throwing those bolts and figuring out what this anomaly does. If you then get attacked by some enemies, you can still use that to your advantage, and provided you play it smart, it can actually just purely help you out and you can take no damage from it yourself. So that is one example of an anomaly that we have seen confirmed in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. I have to assume that a lot of the anomalies from the previous S.T.A.L.K.E.R games will make a return, but we don't know that just yet. I can only go based off the gameplay that we have seen so far when it comes to S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. Now, another example that we have seen in some of this gameplay is, I guess, the gravity related anomalies that we have seen. There is one here that causes a bit of a vortex, and it can just pretty much rip anything to shreds when it gets too close, which again is very dangerous, but it can also be used to your advantage. As you can see in some of this gameplay, they're actually using it to almost defend themselves and do some of that damage for them, which can be really handy because obviously in this type of game, you don't have that many supplies. You could be low on ammo, for example, and in that situation, making the most of these anomalies is actually a really great way to go about the combat. So that is a few examples of some of the anomalies we can expect to see in this game. Like I said, there will be some that help you out, but for the most part, they are definitely very dangerous, and you should be assuming that they are dangerous. You don't want to ever look at one and go, oh, that's going to be a good one, that's going to help me out, because it could backfire and it could essentially lead to you being dead. And that is kind of where the wonder of these anomalies comes in, is that they can often help you out, just like that fall damage one I mentioned earlier, in which case it does kind of make you want to check every single one that you see, just in case they are beneficial, and it can potentially lead to some awesome loot that will help with your survival in the zone. But it is definitely best to tread careful when testing out these anomalies. But that is pretty much it for everything you need to know about the anomalies in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. I'm keen to hear all of your thoughts about this system for those who haven't played the originals, so be sure to leave a comment down below. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.